Hey Wargamers, the Farsight Enclaves preview came out today for the new Tau Codex. It's something that a lot of people have been looking forward to, myself included, and so I'm excited to talk about it today. Before we do though, I want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit subscribe, that way you won't miss any of my upcoming videos digging deeper into the Codex once it's released. Alright, so as with every preview, there's things that we learn about the Codex in general and things about a specific subfaction. So today that's Farsight Enclaves, but we also learn things about Crysis Suits and Commanders, which makes sense considering Farsight is so Crysis Suit heavy. So let's start off with that general stuff and then we'll get to the Farsight stuff in a moment. Starting off with Crysis Suits, we learned a couple general things. One is that they now have 4 hard points, and so that means that they can take 4 weapons or 3 weapons in a support system or whatever you want. And that's good because A, it means that you can load more weapons onto a Crysis Suit. It also makes them more points efficient because you don't have to pay that base cost to get the same number of weapons, all else equal. So it makes them a little bit more points efficient that way. It also makes some signature systems a little bit more viable because instead of having to give up an additional 50% increase in firepower to take a signature system, now you're only giving up a 33% increase in firepower. So it can kind of work out to make signature systems a little bit more of a competitive choice in certain situations. This is all pretty good because you're going to want to take Crysis Suits more often now because yes, you are limited to 1 commander per detachment. This is something that was rumored, but is now confirmed that you can only take 1 commander per detachment. Being limited to 1 commander per detachment is a limitation, but it's not the end of the world. It really kind of goes along with how you're going to want to build your army anyway. Yes, it means that you aren't going to be able to bring 6 commanders, but you're going to be able to bring 3 commanders pretty easily if you are partitioning your detachments out based on their unit composition. What I mean by that is each sept has a certain strength, right? Borkan is going to be good for rapid fire and heavy weapons. Tau is probably going to be good for like your mass infantry, and Farsight is going to be good for your Crysis Suits. So you're not going to necessarily want all of those units in the same detachment anyway. You're going to want to put them in different detachments so that they can all benefit from different sept abilities. And because of that, you're going to be able to get multiple commanders. So, having this limitation of 0-1 commanders per detachment is old school. It feels a little forced, but it's not the end of the world. It's, somewhat thematic, and it also kind of goes along with how you're going to want to build your army anyway. So don't worry, it's going to be okay. Additionally, we learned commanders are going to have multiple different variants. Previously, we had just the standard commander and then the Cold Star, but now you can actually have a true Crysis commander, not an Enforcer suit commander, and you can put him in an Iridium armor. So there's going to be at least 4 different variants of Crysis suit commanders. You have your standard Crysis, you have your Iridium armor, you have your Enforcer, and your Cold Star commander, not to mention special characters or any variation. So while we were expecting there was maybe going to be some sort of different commander type, this is a little bit more nuanced than I was even hoping for. So that's nice. It gives us some flexibility, and it also allows you to tailor your commander to the purpose that you're using it. So if you have a frontline commander, like a beat stick commander, he's probably going to want to be in the Enforcer suit. It's more expensive, but it has an additional wound. If you want a mobile commander, you're going to want to go with the Cold Star, which it sounds like, yes, can take 4 different weapons, not just the high output burst cannon and the missile pod anymore. That's rumored, but we'll get to that at a different time. And then there are things like just your backline missile pod commander. That's going to want to, probably just take a standard Crysis, so you don't necessarily need to take an Enforcer or a Cold Star if you just want to shoot missile pods off the back line. So that's nice. It gives you a little bit more ability to tailor your list. We also got confirmation of signature systems returning. It's unclear whether or not this is going to be 1 per army or 1 per detachment or 1 per commander or anything like that. They didn't get into that type of detail, but it seems like probably it's going to be 1 per detachment at maximum. Maybe they'll throw in a command point ability, a stratagem to bump that number up, which based on our previous signature systems might be worth it, but overall it's unclear exactly how this is going to be implemented. The one that they gave us access to today is the Honor Gauntlet. That's right, your favorite Power Fist is back, and it basically works exactly how it used to. Strength 10, -4 AP, D6 damage. it will do some damage to a single target. So you can use it to maybe like punch down a tank or a special character, something like that. A little surprise out of the Tau ranks for your opponent, but it is overall pretty situational, and you want to, kind of keep that in mind. One thing that suggests that signature systems are going to be limited in some way is that the command and control node, which used to be a signature system, is now a stratagem. So, we might see several other previously signature system type abilities moving into stratagems, and that way we don't have as much competition for signature systems, and it also allows us to kind of do the same things without having to actually have multiple signature systems or multiple relics, if you want to use that terminology. So it gives you some flexibility there, but does constrain their use to command points and the economy associated with that. So keep that in mind. But overall, this new command and control node ability is a nice addition to the Codex. Basically, it's a one command point ability. You select a commander. He cannot shoot for that turn, but a nearby, within 6 inches, battlesuit unit can re-roll all their to wound rolls. So, if you have a unit of Crysis Suits with a bunch of fusion blasters or a bunch of plasma rifles or a Riptide with heavy burst cannon, this is going to make a huge difference in their ability to really stick wounds on high toughness targets. Particularly if we're thinking about a heavy burst cannon Riptide firing at a vehicle, being able to re-roll your wounds is really beneficial. So this is a ability that you are going to want to use almost every turn, I suspect, and it means that your commanders are going to want to hang out with your battle suits. They're not going to be flying solo like you might have seen with commander spam, where they're all over the board by themselves. So you're going to want to have your commander nearby your other battle suits, which is thematic. The major drawback of the stratagem, of course, is that it requires the commander not to fire. Especially if we only have one commander bird attachment, we want them to be able to do what they do best, and that is shoot off awesome weaponry. So having to forego that firing option in order to use the stratagem is a bit of a complicated issue, right? In the past, you're able to say, all right, this is going to be my buff commander, and I'm going to load it up with signature systems, and it's never going to fire. It's just going to do this one job. Now, you can't rely on having your command points available to do the stratagem, and so you are going to want to load them up with weapons, but you have to do so with the idea that maybe they're not actually going to use them, which is challenging. So really, there's a balance issue here where we're trying to use commanders offensively, but then also give up that offensive ability to buff this other unit. And I think that makes sense. There's an economy there. There's some sort of cost-benefit analysis that you have to do every time you use it. But it would be really great if we had a commander that wasn't an issue for. And I think that's actually where Farsight comes in very nicely. So Farsight is not a shooty commander. He's a commander that really does best at close combat. And yeah, he has a plasma rifle, but it's still just a plasma rifle, and he doesn't have a lot of volume of fire that would really make it a huge loss if he just didn't shoot at all. So using the command and control node with Farsight actually makes a lot of sense. So let's look at the improvements that have been made to Farsight. Both of Farsight's weapons have been improved. The plasma rifle is now 30-inch range, -4 AP instead of -3, and does 2 damage. And then the Dawn Blade is now +3 strength, meaning that he's going to be hitting at strength 8 instead of strength 5. One of the major issues he had previously was that he just wasn't able to get that high number of wounds through because of his low strength. Now at strength 8, he's going to do a lot more reliable job of getting that damage through. So overall, this makes Farsight a much more beat stick unit than he was before, but it's still not a huge loss if you just don't fire that plasma rifle. Farsight and any other models in a Farsight Enclaves detachment benefit from the Farsight Enclaves SEP tenet, which is Devastating Counterstrike. What it does is it allows you to re-roll wound rolls of 1 if you are firing within 6 inches of the target unit. So clear applications here in gun drones and breachers and Crysis Suits, in Farsight himself, and in Yuvara's. All of these are units that tend to operate fairly close to their targets, and so having the ability to re-roll a wound is really good on them. That's not an ability that happens very commonly throughout the game. Yes, there are ways to do that for other armies, but for Tau, we really need some way to better our wound rolls, and having this native ability to just re-roll wound rolls of 1 is huge, especially if we're talking about things that don't get a lot of shots. So like fusion blasters, if you roll a 1 on a fusion blaster and you needed a 3 to begin with, that sucks, but it also means that you have a fairly good chance of getting that re-roll to stick. So having that ability to re-roll wounds is really good if you get within range to use it. So I think there's a fairly good application here with Farsight and a unit of Crysis Suits with gun drones. All these guys together moving up the board, being a close quarters shooting army can do fairly well with this Sept Tenant. The Warlord trait for Farsight Enclaves is that the Warlord can Heroic Intervention up to 6 inches as opposed to only 3, and he gets to re-roll failed hit rolls in the first phase of combat. So if he's been charged, or has performed a Heroic Intervention. Farsight already has the ability to re-roll hits in the index, so maybe he's going to lose that ability and this will just be incorporated into his Warlord trait, but still being able to Heroic Intervention up to 6 inches means that he's going to do some damage even if he doesn't charge. So one nice thing about the way Heroic Intervention works is that you can deep strike your Crysis Suits. Yes, you don't want them to get charged, but if they do get charged, Farsight can counter-strike fairly easily. You know, if he can Heroic Intervention up to 6 inches, that's actually pretty far if you think about the scales at which charging actually occurs at. So this is a nice way to make sure that Farsight's actually going to be able to get in combat even if he's out of range of the charge himself. Now you might select to use this on a non-Farsight Warlord, and I don't mean a Warlord with a different Sept trait. I mean a Warlord that's part of the Farsight Enclaves that just isn't Commander Farsight. So if you do that, maybe you want to equip him with your favorite signature system from the old Farsight Enclave supplement, and that is the Fusion Blades. So Fusion Blades are back. They basically act just as Fusion Blasters in shooting, but when they are in melee, they also act like Fusion Blasters. So you get to use Fusion Blasters in close combat. You don't get the Melta effect of rolling 2d6 and taking the highest, but they still pack a punch. So this is a nice ability that allows you to actually do some significant damage in close combat, even if you're trying to avoid it. So take this, you might still get charged, but your opponent's going to pay a price for doing so, which is always nice. I don't know how ubiquitous this will be in armies, especially if it's limited signature systems to like 1 per detachment or 1 per army, but overall, I love Fusion Blades and I'm glad that they're included. One thing I was surprised they didn't mention was the Jetpack keyword. I would have expected Jetpack keywords to be addressed in the Crysis Battlesuit preview, which we had today, but it wasn't. This leads me to believe that nothing is going to happen with the Jetpack keyword. There's not going to be any jump, shoot, jump built into the Codex natively. It's still going to be a stratagem only type thing at best. So don't get your hopes up. There's probably not going to be any type of Jetpack keyword benefit aside from those given to us by stratagems. So that's a little bit of a downer, but we've talked about this in the past. I don't think it's the end of the world. So overall, where do I think Farsight Enclaves fits into the Codex overall? Knowing what we know now, I still think Borkan is a really strong Sept, and I think it's going to be the backbone of a lot of armies. Its strength is going to be building up this gun line that we're used to seeing with Tau and kind of building a static army around that, which is good in terms of firepower, but not so good in terms of winning games. So really where Farsight Enclave shines is adding an aggressive mobile component to your army that you aren't going to be able to necessarily capitalize as much on using Borkan. So I think bringing a unit of Crysis Suits with gun drones, maybe Ivara in Farsight, maybe Ivara and Borkan. Either way, I think it's a Ivara and it's going to do fine. And then Commander Farsight himself, or just a commander with Fusion Blades in the Farsight Enclaves. That's going to be my aggressive forward pushing beat stick unit that's going to take objectives and you know, give the enemy a hard time. And then I'm going to have my gun line with a bunch of fire warriors, maybe some hammerheads, a couple fireblade, cadre fireblades, maybe a commander in a Cold Stars battle suit, that sort of stuff going on in the back line. And I think this is actually going to be a fairly good combination because you have that solid backbone gun line being able to put out lots of shots, especially with the benefits to Borkan in terms of range and when you're going to actually be able to triple fire using the Cadre Fireblade ability. Maybe throw in a Pulse Accelerator drone on top of there to really you know, turn it up to 11. But you're going to be able to kill a lot of stuff with that type of setup. And then having the aggressive Farsight component is going to be able to take out objectives and really put pressure on the opponent and not allow them just to walk up to you and have their way with your gun line. So I think they're actually going to fit together very well, and I think you're going to see some nice synergistic army compositions using Farsight Enclaves. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you heartbroken that jetpacks weren't mentioned? Are you disappointed with the Warlord trait? Or are you just as excited as I am about getting Crysis Suits back on the table? Let me know, and of course, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank all my patrons over on Patreon. Your support really makes a difference for me and I really appreciate it. Special thanks goes out to NoExcusesPanda, Paul Leuders, TauOswell, Andy Young, Peter Benjamin Parker, Deverson, and Giovanni DiMaggio. You guys rock, thank you. If you liked this video particularly well, head on over to Patreon and consider joining our community over there. Thanks as always, and happy wargaming.